Hey, everybody, welcome back to another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and the topic again today, Carolina basketball. And the question is, what are the three biggest concerns so far of the Tar Heels through the first 9 games of the season? Carolina's 7-2, got a couple of really nice wins. Arkansas, Tennessee. They have 2 losses, Villanova in overtime, which doesn't look, it looks worse and worse as Villanova continues to lose games. Another one Tuesday night to Connecticut at Madison Square Garden, a game that I thought the Tar Heels learned a lot, showed some good things, but also got a really good measuring stick, a barometer of where they are and where championship contenders are, because Connecticut is clearly one of them. Okay, so 9 games is enough of a snapshot, if you will, especially with the last 5 being against power conference teams, for us to kind of get a feel for where this team is right now. So I'm going to roll through the 3 biggest concerns that I think make sense right now. And I want you guys to tell me what yours are as well. So pay attention to these. Tell me what you think. Tell me, and I'm not going to do this in any specific order, but am I missing something? Is there something that I'm missing entirely? Let me know. If you agree, let me know. And this is also a quick reminder, TarHeelIllustrated.com for a 1-year subscription. It's just $8.33 a month. It's holiday season. You can buy a subscription as a gift for one of your loved ones who is a Carolina Tar Heel passionate fan, just like you, or you can buy it for yourself. $8.33 a month, guys. It's the same price it has been since I took over this site August 1st, 2014. Everything else has gone up, man. Everything else has skyrocketed. We stayed the same price, just $8.33 a month. It helps keep stuff like this going. We travel everywhere the Tar Heels go in football and basketball. We go. So it helps us do that. It helps us bring you guys inside information, inside content, first-hand observations and perspective and information that you're not going to get many other places. We bring that to you, and it helps when people subscribe to our site because, after all, this is a business as well. So go ahead and go over to our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com, just $8.33 a month. Gift a few for some friends and gift one for yourself. Okay, the 3 biggest concerns so far for the Tar Heels. In no particular order, I'm going to go rebounding. Let's start with that. They're not a terrible rebounding team, but they're not a typical rebounding team for a couple of reasons. One, they're not very big. I was thinking, flying back from New York Wednesday, that the last 4 games Carolina's played, it has been clearly the smaller team, the shorter team. That's bizarre in a lot of ways, because for most of the last 45, 50 years, 55, 60 years, 55 years, I'll say, going back to when Dean started getting them in the Final Four. This Final Four run started in 1967. Carolina's almost always been the longer team. A couple of big dudes down low, a big wing, sometimes a big 2 guard, had some big point guards. But the Tar Heels they're smaller than Arkansas, smaller than Tennessee, smaller than FSU, smaller than Connecticut. And it kind of hurt them a lot against Connecticut. Shooting over the guards, the rebounding was an issue. I think the guards were affected at times by Connecticut's length. But the one area that absolutely is showing itself here is rebounding. The Tar Heels are plus 4.9 on the season. They need to be at least plus 8. That is the low end number of acceptable number for Carolina basketball. Usually Tar Heels are better than that. And another area that they're not doing very well this year is they're not doing as well in the defensive glass. They're allowing a lot of offensive rebounds. That was an issue against Connecticut. So what's the problem? Is it just that they're not as big? No, because rebounding is not all about height. Wes Unseld, I'm dating myself here, obviously. For you older guys, you know who he was. For young ones, look him up. Louisville fans, well, they're familiar with him. Wes Unseld, one of the greatest rebounders of all time, and he was maybe not even 6'6", and he played the post with the Bullets for years. It's about positioning. It's about want. It's about anticipation of where the ball's coming off the rim and that kind of thing. And on the offensive end, part of the reason I think they haven't been great yet is because it's also knowing your teammates, knowing where they're going to shoot the ball from. You can sort of sense when a shot's coming, so you can get better position yourself that a shot's going to go up. These guys aren't quite there yet. They're getting there, but they're not quite there yet. I think of the three things that I'm going to highlight in this drop. This is the one thing that might remain more of an issue throughout the year, simply because I think it's the hardest of the three to fix. Again, you've got three guards out there sometimes. I do think this group can crash the boards better. Sometimes guys take shots and there's four guys in the perimeter standing and watching. They need to hit the boards harder. Harrison Ingram should be a great weak side offensive rebounder. Jalen Withers has been that, maybe not great, but been good at Louisville. If he can get himself on the floor more, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk about here, he can be an effective weak side rebounder as well. Jalen Washington, another guy. I'll hit on him in a few minutes as well. So this is an area I think that is worth Carolina fans being concerned about, because if this is a substandard rebounding team for Carolina's standards, then the Tar Heels are going to have to find some other ways to make up for it, to have the kind of season that they want to have and that they're capable of having. Perhaps it means they have to shoot better from the perimeter. Maybe they have to force a couple more steals or turnovers to make up for some of the lost possessions that you get with a rebound, because a rebound is an extra possession, especially on the offensive glass. So this is something to keep an eye on, and I think it was probably the biggest concern that I have moving forward. It would not shock me if the Tar Heels are still not a great rebounding team when March rolls in. If they are, then kudos to them. And I think these next 10 days before they play Kentucky, this will be one of the points of emphasis, because it's not often that Hubert initiates a topic on his own when we talk to him in press conferences and stuff. He usually just answers the question and sometimes doesn't give a whole lot there. But he on his own, multiple times in the last couple of weeks, has brought up the rebounding and his concern about the rebounding. And it's a legitimate concern. The next thing is the switching on defense. I go back to the opener against Radford. A couple guys in the media were sitting on press row and we're watching the Tar Heels switch, and Radford's guards are getting in the lane and they're getting those 15 and 12 footers, floaters, and then Carolina comes out, defends out a little bit, and they get to the rim. The switching was an issue that night, and I think has been an issue for the most part. There are times the Tar Heels play well defensively, and some teams don't exploit it as much as others. Connecticut literally can write a textbook on how to beat Carolina switching. They abused the switching the other night, and there weren't a whole lot of things done to sort of change that. So what could have been done? What can be done moving forward? If they're going to switch a lot, I could see switching specifically on the perimeter, but I wouldn't want Armando guarding another team's point guard, but that happened the other night. In fact, one of the pieces that we ran in our coverage, the photo was Armando guarding Cam Spencer way out on the perimeter. Can't have that. I think that needs to change. It doesn't suit Armando's skill set. It doesn't suit his strengths, and it doesn't help the team, because that means someone else is on Klingon or one of the other bigs for Connecticut. I'm just not a big fan of that. Never been a huge fan of switching a ton. I played basketball back in the day. It was just high school. Wasn't anything like this, but I've talked to college players before, and they say one of the dangers of switching is that when you're playing defense and then you're playing a team that's moving a lot, which means there's going to be more switching, you're so uber focused on listening for the switch call that sometimes it makes you a tad step slow with what you're doing, because you're not as fully dialed in to your man as you need to be. I have no idea if this is happening with the Tar Heels. I have not asked any of them. Perhaps at some point I will just kind of get their gauge on it. But I like the idea of flashing different defenses. Hubert did go to a 1-3-1 on one possession, and Spencer hit a 3 Tuesday night. And then he went to the trap, the press, for about a minute and a half. They got a couple buckets, and then he went off of it. But I think, to be honest with you, I think he went off of it because the team was tired and he knew it. because the other thing I'm going to mention here in a second is why the team was tired. One of the reasons why the team was tired. So defensively, he has to figure out what best works for this team. I don't think the bigs defending all over the court works for this team. I'm a fan of guys fighting through screens. Roy Williams loved a guy who could fight through a screen. If you were to ask Roy right now, you see him in the Dean Dome, you go down and get a selfie with him, then ask him, who's the best player you ever coached at fighting through a screen? I know what he's going to say. It's going to be Wes Miller. And one of the reasons Wes got as many minutes as he did his junior and senior year is because, as Roy would say, that tough little nut or that sucker could get through a screen. And because of that, he was a very good defensive player. 5'10", 5'10", right? 5'10". He was still a very good defensive player, always guarding guys bigger than him. So maybe flash some different stuff. And the third thing I'm going to talk about is getting production from other guys. I'm going to connect it to the defense. The other night, watching Connecticut in person carve up the heels, for a while, it looked so easy. And I'll give you sort of an example here, an analogy. Most of you watching this have played video games before. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, you're playing, whatever. Fred Smith Takes Mars. I don't know. I don't know what these games are called now. My daughter plays a lot of them, and they're mind-boggling to me. Bee Swarm Simulator, stuff like that. But a lot of these games, these video games, you go back to the days of Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, and now they have levels. And she will tell me about, I captured this and I captured that. They have levels. And basically, you try to advance to a new level. And most of you that have played video games have mastered a game where, okay, the first 6 levels I've mastered. And when you start over, you have to go through them. So it's almost tedious at times. You just kind of roll through. You know where everything is. You go ahead and zap that thing, eat that thing, whatever the case is. It's that level 7 that you want to get to. And that will be a challenge, because then you have to learn how to handle it. There were times Tuesday night where it looked like Connecticut was going through those first 6 levels. It was easy. So what could Carolina have done? I think change defenses is one thing, but also personnel. If you put Trimble out there, Seth Trimble, you put Jalen Washington, you put Jalen Withers out there, and you just rotate some guys by the simple fact that they're different people. They have different length. They have different bounce. They look different. That would change up the defense in and of itself, but there wasn't a whole lot of that. So getting production from other guys, and the concern that some people have of bench usage the last 2 games is the third thing. And I do think that this goes hand in hand to agree. The one outlier is Cormac Ryan. He has to produce more. 0 for 6 from the floor. I thought maybe he was a little bit tight the other night, went back home. First time he's ever played in Madison Square Garden. He's from Manhattan. I get it. Human nature. We talk about it all the time. I'm sure human nature was a part of that, but man, he's got to do better than 0 for 6. And let's be real here. He's 25.5% from 3 this year. He's 32.5% from the field. He's got to do better. He's got to be more consistent. He wasn't always super consistent at Notre Dame. He was a flare-up guy. And we did a couple of pods earlier in the year before the season even started. I said, okay, let's see if he's a flare-up guy this year. Looks like he kind of has been so far. But he needs to find a level of consistency so he can knock down some shots, which will help Armando, which will help everybody else. And they need a fourth scorer to step up. And if he can be that fourth fairly consistent scorer, that will make this a much better team. But with that, they need other production. The bench production at times has not been great. And it's trending in a direction after the last 2 games where it might continue not being great, maybe less great as the season moves forward. 71 minutes combined for the bench the last 2 games, and they happen to be games that the Tar Heels were either nip and tuck or trailing in the first half, and it carried into the second half, Florida State and Connecticut. So one of the absolutes in our discussions with the players and Hubert before the season was, having more options, having a deeper bench. These are Hubert's guys. He brought them in. What happens here with the bench? I thought the team got tired Tuesday night. I asked RJ and Armando in the locker room if they got tired. Because UConn, it was 65-60. Carolina had a couple shots to score and cut it down even more and didn't. And then UConn got a run out, got a dunk, and it was never the same. It was an 18-6 run. And in that span, Carolina missed 14 of 16 shots, and they looked like tired leg shots, a lot of them. I think they were tired. The bench needs to play, not just to keep the starters fresh, but to give a different look, to add a different flavor. They have players that are talented enough to be situational. We saw Seth Trimble's situational attributes in the comeback against Florida State. He was actually on the floor when they went press for a couple minutes the other night, but he could do more. He gives them just like this hops guy, this dude that can just, he's fearless. He could score in a way it's a little bit different than some of the other guys, and he can defend. Got to get him out there to wrinkle things up. You don't want to just run dive plays all the time and sweeps. You got to run a draw play. You got to throw the ball down the field. You got to use your tight ends. It's the same thing in basketball. Same kind of concept. I'd like to see Jalen Washington play more for the simple fact that he needs to bang against other bigs. There aren't a lot of guys like Armando in the country. And he's banging against Armando in practice. So in the games, he can bang against other guys, different kinds of players. See if his game grows in game by getting more extended times on the floor. Sometimes he goes 2 minutes, he's out. 3 minutes, he's out. Maybe go 5. And with Jalen Withers, I think he's more a case where it appears that confidence is an issue. And maybe the best thing he needs is just stick him on the floor, let him play 8, 9, 10 minutes straight. See if he can sort of get things rolling. It's kind of like a baseball player who's slumping. Sometimes it just takes like a seeing eye grounder or a loop single to get a guy going. But you can't get that seeing eye grounder. You can't get that loop single if you're not in the lineup. So Withers, if he gets in an 8, 9 minute stretch, he really lathers up a good sweat. Maybe a couple of those sequences play out for him. He starts getting the confidence back. And then he starts to play more like the guy that Hubert Davis thought he was going to get. He's given him some moments earlier, but the last few games have been a struggle for him. So rebounding, that's probably going to stay a little bit of an issue, at least for Carolina standards, the rest of the way. Switching on defense, I think that's fixable. I have no problem switching, but I think it'd be good if sometimes when it looks like the other team has just kind of figured things out, maybe flash some different looks. And not go to a 1-3-1 zone, guy hits a 3, and then you leave the 1-3-1 zone. And the other thing is they need more production from Cormac Ryan / the bench. If you get Trimble out there, you get Jalen Washington out there, you get Jalen Withers out there, and they're able to play and not just give guys breathers, but produce, that will make this team a much better team. That was missing against Connecticut. And until the 22-0 run with the press, in some respects, it was missing against Florida State as well. So they need that. The last thing this team needs to become is an Iron 5. And I'll say this. Someone in the media who also, by the way, asked a question to Hubert after the game about playing the bench. He said to me, as I was typing it in the under 8 timeout stats that I tweet out, he said, it's looking like the Iron 5 again. And I had tweeted that at that point, the bench had played 29 minutes. They played 35 total against Connecticut, 36 against Florida State. So we'll see. 10 days to tweak some things, throw some stuff out, maybe add some stuff, and have some hardcore practices once exams are over. And we'll see what they look like against Kentucky, then Oklahoma, then Charleston Southern, and then it's ACC the rest of the way. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this club does. There's so many parts. There's so much reason for Carolina fans to be optimistic that this club will have a really, really good season. Armando said that they're going to see Connecticut again. He thinks that at some point they're going to see them in the tournament or a team like them, and they'll be able to handle their business at that point. But they got to get better rebounding. They got to become better, especially consistently better defensively. And they need to get production from other guys, from Cormac Ryan and the bench. And the only way the bench is going to produce is if the bench plays. Let me know what you think. What did I miss? What do you disagree with? What do you agree with? Let me know on Facebook page. Let me know on Twitter. And let me know on our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com. Remember, for $8.33 a month, you can be an insider too, and you can give gifts to Tar Heel friends and family. They can be insiders as well. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell so you get updates every time we upload, and come back to our site, our website over and over, and our channel over and over, because we constantly rolling stuff out 365 days a year. I'm AJ. Thanks for stopping by.